Hello.
Hi, Eda.
Hi, Jill. How are you?
Good. I got your text message and
Yeah,
I'll reply. Sorry, I was in a
that's
meeting
fine.
before this, but I'll reply probably tonight and we'll
That's
set up a
fine.
time.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi, all. I have put in the chat uh, a link to our website, our webpage, where the documents for this meeting exist. And I will pop it back into chat again. On that page, you can see the agenda. For some of you, that agenda might also appear in chat. So just want you to have those. I know some things got disseminated late. Seems like there's been some computer hiccups happening. Hello, by my clock, it is 4 o'clock by my computer. So let's get started. And first of all, welcome to everyone. I have not looked down through the participant list. Is Tim Mulvey here today?
No, he's not
No.
here in Christina,
Okay.
but they're not official members yet, so I don't have him as present.
Tim might be.
He told me, well, I don't know, he just said June. He was going to
Okay.
be at the June meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. So this is May meeting. Since Tim isn't here, I was going to have all the board members kind of speak up and wave, but actually we might need to do that anyway. So I'm going to just start with who I can see on the screen. This will be helpful probably to Maria. Ed, can
Hello.
you say something and wave?
Hello, I'm here. Thank you.
Tim?
Hello, I'm here as well.
Tim Dodge will be rolling off at the end of June. Lenore?
Hi, Lenore Fetchko.
Etta? Can you unmute and
Hello, I'm here.
Sam? Can you unmute and wave?
Yep. Hi there.
Maria?
Hi.
Looks like you're in your office.
Yep. I'm back in my office. I'm not in the convention center anymore.
Hello, Maria.
Hi, Ed.
Any other board members who are not on my screen?
Babette.
This is Babette. I'm here.
Oh, hey, Babette.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Thank you. Nice
Right.
to be seen and not viewed.
Anybody
Speaking
else?
of views, that's quite a view you got out your window there.
Thank you. In my imaginary pretend land head, this is where I am. Not at my dining room table.
We'll work with it.
Okay. So by my count, then we have 8 board members here, and we do have a quorum. So in chat, for some of you, you can see the agenda. I just want to point out at the bottom of the agenda, a text I've added that we do respect privacy, and has been our practice and will continue to be our practice to put people's names on the minutes of who's in attendance. But if you do not want your name listed, please message Gail Cox. Her email address is gcox@onlib.org, excuse me, gcox@onlib.org. If you email her, she can remove your name from the list that goes on to the minutes. So just want to make that known. We do have a consent agenda. We have approval of minutes. There are no board absences, if I understand correctly. Can I have someone move the consent agenda?
I'll move it.
Ed, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second,
Lenore, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, so moved. Christian,
Hi, folks. How are you? Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for your support of the library. I know that we want to give space for more board conversations and for deeper kind of conversations, as well as some stuff that's come up. So I'm going to make my board report pretty quick, or my executive director's report. And then if you have questions about anything that I'm involved in, you can certainly ask me questions. Just a quick overview. The last month or so has been very heavily invested in bringing back staff, expanding our hours, getting ourselves, kind of up and serving again. We've been doing a lot of work on the MOU, which is important both for the MOU perspective, but then also in a lot of the work that we've been doing. And this is reflected in Jill's notes as well about kind of defining a lot of the questions around, OCPL and its structure and how it works. When I first interviewed for this job, a lot of people asked me what my one-year goal was, and I told them it was to understand the structure of OCPL. That was kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it's not entirely tongue-in-cheek, and I hope that the work that we've been doing to kind of better define us as an organization will do a better job of kind of clearing some of that up. Even something as simple as having an elevator pitch, just a quick little elevator pitch that explains what OCPL is and what kind of its different factions are, or different aspects are. I just want to speak to, again, the MOU. The staffing is going to be continuously important, and that is an ongoing thing. We actually got a bunch of VRRs cleared through today. That's an area that Dawn in particular has been working very hard on to get cleared through. So we are working to expand and have the goal of expanding to full hours, ASAP. We'll be bringing on another batch of part-timers, and as soon as we get these VRRs cleared, and we'll also be doing some infill on a number of the positions that people retired out of and that we've been looking to fill since. We've also been able to fill in a couple of, or at least one of the key positions for Lib 3, so we're getting better support and management for our branches. Just a heads up, programming is going to be key for the libraries this summer. It's something that we're exploring, and we're looking into doing some outdoor reading rooms at a couple of the locations. That's stuff that we're looking into. There's been a bit of a shortage in outdoor furniture, if you can believe that. It's quite hard to get a hold of outdoor furniture right now, but that's an area that we're looking into. And then for the programming stuff, we're just lifting a lot of protocols from some other spots. So that's areas that people are kind of getting used to. I have a project that I'm interested in kicking off the ground, which I've spoken to a number of you about. This is about a 6-month look ahead, so that we would be looking to maybe start this project in January. But I'd be very interested in setting up a not-for-profit incubator at the Central Library, particularly a not-for-profit in residence. I provided just a short brief about what that looks like for you folks. In the summary, it is an area that I'll be developing more, so I'll be sharing more information with you as we keep developing that idea. The idea is that in some of our conversations, we discussed, kind of long-term plans for the library, what the library's role in our community is, what we can really do. And something that really struck me and something I was very interested in when I came to Syracuse was the issue of poverty in this city, that typically Syracuse is always kind of one of of the top 10 poorest, cities in our nation, libraries often respond to poverty, and a lot of our work, supports people who are in poverty. But I think it would be really interesting to see what we could do if we kind of weaponized the library to really attack the issues of underlying poverty and structural poverty and inequality in our society. And the not-for-profit incubator, and particularly a not-for-profit in residence that does work with people in financial literacy, credit reconstruction, first-time home buying, some of those things could be a really useful lever for us to be able to use that forward. But I'll be able to talk about that more, and we can see some more formal presentations on that. Just wanted to give you a heads up that that's something I'm kind of developing with the idea of having a launch in about 6 months or so. And then just for personal travel, I was an organizer for the 9th Urban Librarians Conference, which was virtual but based out of Brooklyn, New York. The theme was Liberation and Joy. It was a great day. We had a very rocky start to the conference. We used a new program software to do that, a new conference software to do it. Hey Summit, I would not recommend it for people who are doing that stuff. But in the end, the conference went very well. It's been a busy few weeks. And obviously the big topic that I would like to have a conversation with you folks is how we respond to the new CDC guidance. And I have a recommendation which I sent out to everyone, which we've discussed and which I've had a chance to discuss with folks over at County as well as our leadership team here. And I'm happy to discuss that at whatever time in the meeting Jill sees is the appropriate time to do that. Thank you all very much for your support, for the work that you do for the libraries.
Christian, thank you. Why don't we do that wording now? I don't know if everyone's seen it.
Mhm. So the principal issue, comes down to recent CDC guidelines came out about 2 days ago, are saying that vaccinated individuals do no longer need to wear masks indoors or outdoors, and that social distancing is less important. This obviously is very challenging for us. We don't have a way of knowing who is vaccinated, who isn't vaccinated. This is private medical information that we would not ask of staff, and it's certainly not something I can ask of patrons going in and out of the doors. The concern is that if we err too far on the side of one way, then we have people who are coming in without masks. And if we go too hard on the other side, now there are people who are not going to want to wear masks, who are going to be confronted, who are going to say, well, the governor's mandate the governor's executive order has expired, CDC guidelines, et cetera, et cetera. So what we're recommending, and what I'm going forward with and recommending that the board, I don't know that it's a change in policy, so I'm not sure that we would need a vote per se, is that at this time, we not change our policy substantively when it comes to patrons. The policy that I'm recommending, what I'm recommending as our way forward, is that staff who have been vaccinated may elect to not wear masks in the workplace, but that they need to still be respectful of and cognizant of their colleagues who may not have been vaccinated, because we have a few people on staff who have not been vaccinated for a variety of reasons, and they would need to still just be respectful of them. However, patrons coming into the library, we have no way of identifying whether or not they are vaccinated. So we will be asking them to still wear masks in the library, and we will still have our staff who are on the floor be still wearing masks. And they're still going to have a temp check. They're still going to have a screening. They're still going to have their information captured for contact tracing. This is actually in line with what has been happening to This is in line with what County has been doing with at the On Center, where people in offices can go without masks, but if you're a visitor and you go into county government, then you are still wearing a mask. And so that's what we're going to be asking people to do. It's not a substantive change in our policy, although I'm not sure that we can continue to require masks be worn up to and inclusive of the point where we would potentially do a trespass. And that gets into the question of whether or not that's a full change in policy or whether that's a recommendation. Yeah, Ed, what's up?
I'd like to support the motion and put the motion on the table if Jill, you want us to move on it.
Sam, did you have a
Jill?
question for me or for Jill?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know all the Robert's Rule of Order. I don't know if
Sure.
Ed just said it. But the only thing that I would say here is, one, the school district in the city is still having everybody mask. I think that we need to be, aware of the fact that parents with kids who are not eligible to be vaccinated are coming in. And if your feeling is that the library doesn't have the ability to ask staff if they have been vaccinated or not, then you're just relying on someone telling the truth, which fully trust that people would. But I think just in terms of having a welcoming atmosphere for parents whose kids are not even eligible yet, who cannot be vaccinated, I think we just need to be pretty thoughtful about who those kids are coming into contact with, who may or may not be vaccinated. So that's my only comment there.
Okay. Thank you.
So Christian, is this then a change to the reopening plan?
Only in as much as that this is a policy which would merit a ban. So we're still going to ask you to wear a mask. If you flat out absolutely refuse to wear a mask and you're polite about it, then I don't see us necessarily being able to ban you for the refusal to not wear a mask. Although it does still kind of fall under no shirts, no shoes, no service. I mean, I think we can still move forward with this as an enforceable policy. I mean, it is still library policy, and then we can revisit it at a later date, maybe towards the end of the summer, about relaxing mask requirements in the public, in the library as a whole.
Okay. I'm asking because I just want to make sure that the reopening plan stays up to date, and if it needs to come back for reapproval, that we do that.
Well, I mean, it will be modified. It'll have to be modified, but this particular bit of policy is about 2 hours old, so it has not been reflected in the policy. Hey, Lenore.
Lenore?
Thank you. Jill, so what I heard you say, Christian, is that you really don't need a motion because it's not a change in your policy?
Correct.
Okay, so I think we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, it would remain as part of the code of conduct that people would need to wear
Yeah.
masks.
I've been dealing with this all day today, trying to figure out
Yep.
what it really all means.
Yep.
But I think you're staying the course.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so too. I really kind of was walking a pretty fine line on this, and then we had some advice. Actually, Ryan chimed in on some stuff that he was comfortable with, and that made a big difference. Ryan has been extremely supportive in this process. I think we've hit a really nice stage with them. So this is in line. I'm not anticipating any issues with county if this is, when this is how we go forward. And I've touched base with the union, and they seem comfortable enough with this iteration as well. So I don't anticipate any problems with the union on this either.
Ed, are you comfortable with this not being a motion?
Yeah,
That this-
if there's a consensus and support, and we don't really need a motion, that's fine.
Great.
Speaking for myself, I had just assumed that even though the CDC relaxed the guidelines a week ago, that it would be weeks or possibly months before most public spaces in New York would be allowing people in without masks on. So I don't see this as being particularly restrictive. We still have a lot of people who have not been fully vaccinated yet, including kids, as Sam pointed out. So I think it all makes sense.
Thanks, Tim. We are fortunate in that we are in a very pro-mask culture here in Central New York still, which is a good thing, and I think that that's a really great thing. One of the biggest issues in library land, or the concerns that people have in library land, is that if a patron comes in, they don't want to wear a mask, they get confrontational. Are we now having larger contact or more exposure to staff due to an irate patron when normally we would not necessarily have that? Honestly, I don't see it as being that big a problem. We also have CET on there to de-escalate situations, and CET is present in each of our libraries at this point anyway, so they would be on hand to assist with that stuff, and they have a really good reputation for being very good at handling that kind of stuff.
Christian, what about taking temperatures? Because I know some places have dropped that.
We're still taking temperatures. I'm fine with that. I mean, I am fine with us still taking temperatures. My preference would be that we take temperatures through the summer. Typically, there's a drop off in September, in library use. You'll see a spike June, July, typically drop off in the tail end of August into September, with a small little bump with kids running back to get all their summer reading stuff that they didn't get. And then it's usually pretty quiet into September, into October, just for general foot traffic in the library, at least in my experience. So I could see us definitely making major revisions to our policy then based on the science at the time.
Okay. Yeah, I know that there's been, when talking about people who are asymptomatic, you know, temperature doesn't work.
Nope, nope. And temperature, hey, temperature is very much part of, you know, I think part of the pandemic theater, and I recognize that. I think we can all recognize that, but I do think that having it is kind of a good canary in a coal mine kind of a moment, and a good way of identifying, you know, kind of immediate risk. It also shows a level of engagement and care and caution, which I think is important for the public to see. For stuff like what Sam is saying, if I'm bringing my kid into a location and people don't seem to give a, you know, damn about COVID, then I don't keep my kids there. I get them out of there pretty quick.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Christian?
Actually, just two.
Sure.
How has traffic been at the reopened libraries? People have got out of the habit of visiting the library for a year. Have they regained that habit?
Yep, steady increase. It's still pretty quiet. I mean, Central, I find Central quite quiet, but we are seeing steady increases. We're seeing people starting to come in more. We're starting to see people discover the library more. You know, one of the things is that we're working against, I think that all of us have within us kind of the yin and the yang of the tail end of all of this, which is we all want to get out and do stuff, but we've also all been programmed for a year and a half to do nothing. So I think people are getting there. And we've seen, you know, it's the anecdotal stories. It's the quality, not necessarily the quantity. So we've got a lot of people who've been very happy to be back in the library. We've got a lot of happy families, got a lot of happy seniors. Is it you know, are we mobbed? Not really, but I don't know that I would anticipate that for a little while yet. Honestly, once we start running programs again, we're going to see our numbers spike. Once we're able to start running programs again safely, our numbers will spike. It's kind of been the game in libraries for a long time. A lot of the foot traffic has been driven by programming. It's very much a come for the coffee, stay for the pie industry at this point. And if we're not doing programming, that automatically is going to slow things down.
Other question I had was about the not-for-profit incubator. Is this something that you've done at other libraries where you've worked, or is it an idea you got from your peers, or where did that come from?
This is a new concept. It came out of some conversations that I was having with people here in the downtown area, from some of the foundations. There was a really, really successful not-for-profit business incubator at Chicago Public Library, which I was following for a couple of years, and I saw a presentation that they did a while back, and was quite inspired by that. I know that there's a number of small business incubators in the city of Syracuse, however, and I felt like a not-for-profit incubator would be really useful for us. In my conversations with Heidi Holtz, she told me about that something like this existed at a time in the past in Syracuse and was a real kind of gathering point and a great point for people to use a lot of building stuff. And then Tim, you've heard me reference the not-for-profit that I run as a hobby, because everybody needs a hobby. And it would be really nice, you know, it would have been really great for my business partner and I in the early days of our organization to have somebody who could say, okay, well, this is what you need to do to get your C3, or you don't even really need a C3, you really need this instead, and that kind of thing. So I think that having a center for us to be able to do that could be really powerful. So have I seen it happen someplace before? No. I mean, I've done incubators before. I did a local history incubator at the last organization that I worked at. But this is a new idea. I don't actually know of another library that has this idea. I think it's largely our idea at this point.
Thanks.
Christian, I think several of us could probably put you in contact with incubators in Syracuse, and there have been some that have housed not-for-profits as well as kind of informal incubators in Syracuse.
Great.
That are housing not-for-profits.
Excellent.
Any other questions for Christian? Thank you. Okay, so before most of you were on, I put some things in chat to try to give people links to the pre-reads. There were some computer hiccups. It seems like with how things were kind of going through the system last week and partially the week before. So I'm blaming the computer on not everyone having all the different pre-reads. And given that, I'm going to highlight a bit more of my president's report than I wanted to. First of all, and we'll do this later, but I want to start setting aside time in our board meetings for board discussion. So the board members can start to hear each other, hear our thoughts on things, and help us think about the future. And so that's the first thing in my board report, and we'll get to that part later in the agenda. We still need someone to fill the vice president position. So since Marilyn Tucci is no longer on the board and she was serving as vice president, we need someone to fill her position. I haven't heard from anybody yet who's willing to do that, but I'll be reaching out perhaps a bit more forcefully in the coming weeks to see if someone will step into that role for the remainder of this year. The other thing is that we have the liaisons between us and the suburban libraries. That list is actually an attachment to my report. Our newer board members, that would be Maria and Tim, I'm hoping will pick up some of the vacancies, the libraries that do not have a liaison, or take a liaison from me, take a library from me, because I have, I think, 5 that I'm a liaison to. I will reach out to Maria and Tim specifically, but if anybody else wants to take on another library or juggle which libraries you have, let me know. I write a lot in my board report about the MOU committee, the memorandum of understanding that OCPL, the system, has with its member libraries. I've actually written almost a page about it in my board report. I'm sure Christian and others have much more they could say about the MOU committee, but I want you to know that work is progressing. And really, I think progressing well at this point. We have split up into committees, subcommittees, and subcommittees to get specific aspects of the MOU done, or at least drafted. A couple of things kind of stood out to me about working on the MOU. One is where our funding comes from state aid, from the federal government through New York State, from the county, from the city, from the members. And so there's a variety of different funding sources for our system services. And a phrase that Mark likes to use is that there's cost sharing for system services. And I think that kind of gets at the concept that no one funding source pays for everything. And so thinking about the funding sources is something that has really stood out to me. The fact that the recurring question about whether the City of Syracuse Library, and I use that phrase purposefully, is a member of the system. And Jerry Nichols was to point out that the branches could not be members because they don't have their own board of trustees, and that's true. But he went back through the founding documents for the system and some other documents, about 60+ pages worth of documents, to see how we were founded, see how we've been organized, and noted that the Syracuse Public Library, or the City of Syracuse Library, whichever phrasing you want to use, is a member of the system. And so this was a question that kept coming up. Now we have an answer. It doesn't change anything, but it makes things a little bit clearer in terms of wording, in terms of the number of members in the system. So it was just that one little picky nuance that that just got clearer for everyone. And then I think the last thing I'll note is that we did at our last meeting hire Jerry Nichols to facilitate the MOU meetings, and he has been doing that. He's been coming to not only the MOU meetings, but popping into some of the subcommittee meetings, providing feedback on different aspects of the document, giving us a sense for our structure in relation to other systems in New York State, providing a different point of view. And I think it's been very useful in helping to move us forward. So thank you for funding him to be a facilitator for the MOU. The last few things I'll just run through quickly. I'm going to set up time with Christian to talk about board documentation and talking with Lenore. You know, this is something that we really do need to figure out, and what might be in a physical board book, because I recognize there's some preference for paper, what could be online. You know, there's a bunch of different things in here. I will set up time to meet with Christian on that. Noted in talking to Lenore that we need an OCPL glossary of terms. And so I'm actually starting in this meeting to note down jargon that we use, like VRR, which I still don't know what it means, but I know what it's about. You know, I don't know what the letters stand for, but I know what it's about. So we'll work on a glossary for the board. At some point, we will have to start meeting in person again. That's also in my report, something that Christian and I will keep an eye out for when the governor's executive order expires. And we'll ensure that when we come back to meet in person, that we do so safely. Again, you can read about that in my report. And the last thing which you approved a couple months ago is paying for DecisionWise 360 assessment, and that is moving forward. So that's my board report in a quick snapshot. You can read the details. I resent it out right before the meeting to the board. Are there any questions that might come to you? Sam?
Just really quickly, you said the count of the libraries and the City of Syracuse Library. Does that include the branches within it? And it's all included as one, or we're talking about City of Syracuse Library as like Central Library, and the branches live in some other kind of universe?
No, so the Central Library includes the branches. They are all one library. And, you know, it's one of those aha moments when Jerry, you know, said that. It's like, you know, this is why they're all one library. It's like, oh, of course they're all one library. So it's, you know, just like New York Public Library, that's all one library. All the branches in Syracuse, together with the Central Library, are all one library, just dispersed across multiple buildings.
That makes sense. Is that consistent with NOPL as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sam, one easy way to think about it is what is under its corporate structure. So NOPL has, you know, Mandy is their library director for the 3 branches. There are 3 branches. They all have their own managers. However, you know, she's still their director, and they have their own board and all that stuff. And that's similar to our structure. That was the easiest way for me to wrap my head around it, is to think about it as a corporation rather than a location.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I feel like I spend half my life and am well known for saying it's really hard to count things the right way. And this is a good example of that.
Any other questions?
Do you have an estimate as to when that MOU process may finally wrap up? Will it be at sometime in the fall, or do you over the winter? Or?
So I actually think personally, well, okay, first of all, it's a longer process than you think. We have to develop the MOU, It then goes through an approval process that includes all of the member libraries and us. It has to be reviewed by county law department. And so that part will take some time. So not tomorrow. Christian?
Hey, Tim, I actually had an opportunity to talk to Jerry about that exact issue in a conversation that he and I had last week. Just again, very pragmatic, professional management kind of stuff. My sense is that we're probably looking at about another 2, possibly 3 meetings before we have a document that we can start passing around for approvals. Those meetings are happening on a 4 to 6 week basis. So my guess would be about 3 months. Maybe by September, we should have a document that we're able to share around, and which will actually be a really good, solid basis for a lot of the communication that we're going to be having going forward as a larger organization.
Yeah, and I was on the Liverpool board when the last MOU process took place. I remember how long that process was and how everyone in the system had to approve it. So yeah, I'm sure it's not an overnight thing.
Hopefully because of the amount of work and the amount of granularity that's gone into this, we'll have a fairly quick approval process and actually end up with a much better document in the end. I don't know if I've told you that I feel like the original MOU was kind of like a holy book. There was just enough in there to start a fight with everybody and just enough to fight over, but not enough to prove anybody right. So I think we're going to end up in the end with a much stronger document. It's going to lay out who we are a lot better. It's just going to take a little bit more time to get there.
Any other questions? So we have several resolutions. We do resolutions by voice vote, which is in good open meeting law practice for things that are really serious. Resolution 2114 is about 4 grant applications. These are all grant applications being submitted to the Central New York Library Resources Council. That's what CLRC is. They are a multi-county, multi-type library council, and they have, they're receiving grant applications for recovery grants. Again, 4 grant applications. One for White Branch, Pettit, Hazard, and then one for the Central Library. Would someone on the board like to move this motion? Ed Koshin moves. Second? Tim seconds. Anybody, any questions about this?
Jill, I'd only just seen it this morning. I hadn't seen the resolutions prior to. So if someone could just give quick background on exactly what it is. I guess, is this the maximum amount of money that we could be asking for, or kind of how did we come to the amount that's in the grant? That would be great.
Sure. Don is the person who signed, I lose that term loosely, on all 4 applications. Don, can you tell us how the amounts were determined?
Oops. Here I am. We had a group of, librarians work on it together. I think Carol Johnson actually spearheaded it. And if I'm correct, I think Christian was involved in the working on that grant with CLRC. And so they got together and tried to decide what the best use of the money, if this was available, could be to help us. And that was pretty much that was the maximum amount that they could ask for. I don't know. Obviously, it's possible that we won't be approved for all of the grants, but they wanted to give it their best shot.
Don, thank you. Any other questions?
You're welcome.
Okay,
Well, if
so
you
Sorry,
give
was
an
there a
example-
question to me there? I apologize. I just ran out.
No.
It's okay, great. Thank you. Hit a uncomfortable silence.
Ed?
I was just going to say, one of those, the White Branch, that's an area very poor area of the city of Syracuse, and they're trying to add, I think it was 10 mobile backpacks with
Right.
internet connection and so forth. And they probably could have asked for more, but I don't know what their limitation was if they were told to keep it within reason, but there's plenty of need out there. So I support these motions. I mean, these grants.
So can we vote? I want to keep this moving. Again, voice vote. Babette,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Lenore,
Yes.
Etta.
Yes.
I'm also a yes. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Resolution 2115. Resolved that the OCPL Board of Trustees approve additional expenditure up to $1,500 from board unrestricted funds for executive organizational coaching service of Stillwork Consulting. I emailed about this a while ago. So you've had a chance to ask questions. Anybody?
I'll move it.
Ed, thank you. Second?
I'll second. Sam.
Sam, thank you. Any discussion? So again, voice vote. Babette,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Lenore,
Yes.
Etta.
Yes.
I'm also yes. And so the motion passes. I want to note that I understand that Tim Mulvey has joined the meeting. I don't know if Tim is a full-fledged board member yet, but I just want to welcome Tim. He's on the screen somewhere. Okay, third resolution. Resolution 2116. Okay, resolve that the OCPL Board of Trustees approves the recommendation from the OCPL Member Council to reinstate the usual identification requirements for obtaining a library card effective June 1st, 2021. This resolution would replace Resolution 2113, which was passed by the board during its April meeting. If we can have someone move this and then we can discuss.
I'll move it.
Tim, thank you. Second?
I'll second it.
Ed, thank you. The member council are all the members of the system, and they do meet regularly. I believe they meet every other month. Formally, they meet informally, I'm sure more frequently than that, and they're probably talking to each other daily. They recognize that this ability to get a digital library card is a good thing, right? It is a good thing, but the way we've implemented it has allowed people to maybe have 2 library cards, maybe get a library card, a digital card, not use it. And so there's things about the current process that they know need to change. And so right now what they'd like to do is to stop issuing digital library cards, clean up the system, and take time to think about what a digital library card really would be like. And I think, I can't see Alyssa on the screen, but I believe that I've adequately represented your thoughts.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Here, let me turn my camera on so you can see a face. There we are. So, yes, we don't, well, to clarify one point, we don't want to turn the ability off completely. People would still be able to get on and get their pack reg cards, right? But there's just the stipulations in place that we had before, and I think Christian wants to add to that a little bit as well.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Sorry.
That's okay. Christian?
Sorry, Alyssa, I didn't mean to cut you off at all.
No, it's okay.
Okay, I just wanted to make
You
sure.
can
'cause-
probably clarify better than I can.
Well, no, I was in on the conversation that you guys had, and I kind of sat in on that conversation. And so if I'm misrepresenting it, Alyssa, please let me know, that I'm wrong. First of all, Dane was kind enough to whip up a bunch of stats for me on this. 96% of the people who are using this are from New York State, which is about 3,342 registrations. And then like California has 24 registrants and Massachusetts has 19, right? So those are the kinds of numbers we're talking about kind of out of house, out of our state, out of our kind of district, problems, or not problems as the case may be. Checkouts by PAC registered patrons, which was just the people who just got that card, from March 2020 to December 2020 were about 3,300. So not huge numbers. And we're at about 2,174 checkouts year to date by PAC registered patrons in 2021. So what those kind of stats express, and Alyssa, again, jump in if I'm not representing this correctly, is that we recognize that there's a little bit of a problem, but as is so often the case in libraries, it's a complicated problem. So trying to figure out whether or not I went in and made a separate registration under Zabriskie without an E on the end of my name, so I can now start checking out materials, even though I've got overdues or whatever, that's a whole other kind of issue. So I think that this is kind of an awareness spot for us, a spot for us to consider this, an area that we need to understand that we're going to be looking at making some changes. I think that the group wanted to reconvene and discuss it again. So my suggestion would be that we would be having, maybe a more formal recommendation about how to go forward on this, maybe for the September or October meeting, just to give ourselves some time, because we're not meeting in August and that body will want to meet and discuss. I did see some really cool stats in there as well. And I'm just kind of throwing these out there too, because of the sense of scale. Overall usage in 2020 for e-content in the system and system databases, we had 248,000 checkouts on Overdrive. Ancestry.com usage increased by 277%. So I guess everybody was doing their family tree while they were locked in. Lynda.com had an 18% increase. Newsbank increased by 27%. And Reference USA had a pretty staggering 149% increase, and Morningstar increased by 132%. So people are really using these resources. They really were a legitimate lifeline to people during these difficult times. So I believe that kind of what the body was looking to do was kind of open up a conversation around this, make the board aware that this is an issue, but not necessarily have a recommendation to make to go forward at this time, because we wanted to look more closely at the issue as a group. Is that a fair representation?
Well, yes and no. I think the group, we do want the, what we would like turned back on essentially is when people get a PAC registered card, they can do it online, but they need to eventually, with some sort of time limit, come in and verify their information with the library. They have to sign off on it, prove where they live in whatever way that would be. So the PAC Reg card doesn't go away in any aspect. What we spoke about in the group was the eventual need to come up with a solution to this to make it easy and accessible for people to get just a digital access only card. Because of those statistics that you said, those statistics are fantastic and really enlightening. So we're going to use, I would imagine that we would use those to move forward with a discussion, on how we can best do that.
Bill, just a question of clarification. Was this resolution, this wasn't cutting off people that had a digital card currently, right? It was just new ones?
No.
Okay.
And what we had done is at the beginning of the crisis, the board, I think very intelligently, and I really appreciate your trust on this, had chosen to just kind of do away with a lot of the strictures that went around with getting a card. Typically, if you got a PAC card, if you got a card online, you signed up for your card, you had it for like a month. If you didn't come in and activate it with your driver's license and confirm it, then you got cut off, right? And your card would go away, as it were. We've done away with that, and the board made the decision to do away with that, and I think it was a great decision, as is evidenced by these stats. The question is that now we are starting to move back to a sense of normalcy, and what is the, how do we make sure that this is being done in a sensible way? And I think those are the issues that Alyssa and the rest of the group are raising. And nobody here wants to nobody wants to cut off access, right? Like if you're a homebound citizen and homebound person and you're stuck in your house, we don't want to cut you off, but we want to figure out a way that we can do that intelligently and do it in a way that's more, I don't know, based in procedures as we're more comfortable with them, based in the sense that your library card is a thing that is tied to a person and is tied directly to a person. Is that accurate, Alyssa? Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah, the members just asked that the board consider voting to turn back on the need for people to come in and just verify, like you said, Christian, after a month.
Yeah, which seems
right now
easy
there's
enough.
no verification process in place. And now that all members' libraries are open in some capacity, yeah, it shouldn't be awfully hard, but we also do recognize the need to look at this a little bit more closely down the road too.
I see Dane is on screen and I think has his hand up.
Yeah, just really quickly, I wanted to just also add in that the concern with duplicate cards, for example, as well as, and the numbers suggest that there are not a lot of out of state, maybe out of county patrons, but I think the load on the e-resources from patrons who either have duplicate cards or are not necessarily county residents, I think places a little bit of distress on patrons who are looking for, trying to get higher on the holds queue for certain resources, can't get access. So I think that becomes a concern for some of the libraries that are offering these resources. And so that's part of the issue I think that we're seeing. So just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Sam?
Yeah, so Christian, appreciate the stats that you gave. I think just to clarify who normally would be able to get a card. So I think, Christian, you'd given us stats for New York State, but specifically for the county, I'd be interested in. The other thing, just to say, it doesn't seem like this is a huge critical issue right this second. Totally makes sense to try and resolve it, but it seems like there are a few kind of policies, rules, including potentially for all the people who did sign up for an e-card over the last year or so, like, are they just grandfathered in, or should we be asking for some kind of proof there? So it seems like, at least for me, there are a few policies that should be set first, and then it would make sense to vote on it. So maybe delaying for a month or so, at least in my mind.
So Sam, this would, if we approved the resolution, there are already things happening to get people to return materials. I'm sure there'd be messaging to get people to come in and verify their address. They would not immediately be cut off, but it would go through a process where people would be given time to, given notice that they need to make some verifications. Christian?
Hey, I don't want to discount this issue, and I'm really not trying to discount this issue, and I appreciate everything Sam said, which is all very relevant. I just want to throw out there that there's about 3,300, a little bit more than 3,300 registrations that are PAC registrations. We have like 150,000 registered users. I mean, we have a lot of users. So it's just kind of, as we look at these numbers, it's just something to kind of bear in mind. Yes, there is a strain that is being put on our resources by these PAC folks who may or may not be here resident in the county. Just also bear in mind, however, they are a very small drop in a very large bucket of users that we have as a whole, which is something to just kind of bear in mind.
Christian, would you have a concern? Sorry, just quickly, would you have a concern going forward if we didn't change this right now and say we waited for 6 months, that we would have a bunch of new users that would be significantly higher than that 3,300, or
So,
if we said let's hold?
Not at all, Sam. My sense would be that anybody who was in a rush to get a library card from a place that they didn't live, that happened a year and a half ago. You know what I mean? That happened last April,
Yep.
But I don't, I see this as just kind of a much of a muchness, you know, people are going to use it as they're going to use it. I don't see anybody seeking out, you know, extra library resources now.
And Sam, this would have ended September 1st anyway. That's what our vote was in April.
Yes.
We're just moving it up. Tim?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because I guess my understanding was that this would apply to newly issued digital cards and not the old ones. So it's not like we're going to be cutting off the people who got the digital cards over the last year. It's really
Correct.
just people from May 19th onward. And I think it makes sense to take some time to think about how we want to do this. We did something in a hurry a year ago because we had to. Now we have the luxury of putting some thought into it. I think that's a good idea.
Dane, is that possible that we would put the validation in for the new cards, but not require them for somebody who's already had their card for some time?
Yeah, the validation process would require that the current, whatever's out there right now, be expired at a certain point, and then that period of time, and during that period of time, that would allow patrons to verify their account and get new library cards. So it's not a cutoff per se, but it is a call for action on those cards to become official, so to speak.
So these were designed to be temporaries. Is that?
They were
Yes.
always designed to be
Okay.
temporary.
Always.
Okay.
Yeah, so to reiterate, all we're asking is that the verification process be allowed to be turned back on from this day forth, essentially. And then the members are very interested in exploring what it would look like to have a digital only card down the road. But like Christian said, there's a lot of thought that has to go behind this. And Sam, I think you said that too, so.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I'd be kind of interested in, not to put a whole bunch of work on Dane's plate, but like, could you verify yourself remotely as well? You know, that raises all sorts of questions, I'm sure, but that's the sort of thing I think with an answer there to say, we're not getting rid of e-cards. We are asking for verification for, you know, really good reasons, but you also don't have to come into the library because as we've seen, I mean, Christian, you just cited a whole bunch of engagement with the library that had nothing to do with coming into the library or even coming to the curbside pickup. You know, it was just engaging online, which is great.
So I want to be mindful of time. We have 2 people who are going to pop off at 5 o'clock, and we've got one more resolution to go through. So I would like to have someone call the question.
I'll call it.
Thank you. Again, in order. Babette,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Lenore,
Yes.
Etta, who may have already, Etta? I don't see her. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, I heard her. And I'm also yes, so it passes. Thank you. One last resolution, which is 2117. We do not have these documents yet, but we will receive them. So this is you're being trusting, but these are due soon. So we need to vote that the OCPL Board of Trustees approves the submission of the 2020 state annual reports for the Onondaga County Public Library for public and association libraries and the Onondaga County Public Library for public library systems. These are 2 reports that we submit every year to the state. Amanda Schiavoli and others are working on these. I know Mark has been instrumental in getting some of the information together. We will get copies, but they are really coming from the board, and so we need to vote. Do I have someone who will move this resolution?
I'll move it.
Ed, thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Oh, Babette, thank you. Any discussion?
Will we have a chance to review it before it is sent off?
You will have a chance to review it. I can't guarantee that you'll have a chance to review it, but sorry, I'm just,
Okay.
Timing.
Yep.
These are basically number documents, statistical documents about the state of OCPL, if memory serves me correct. And they are very interesting to read if you wade through them, but I cannot guarantee that you'll see them in advance. Christian?
Hey, Sam, that's a very legitimate question. Just to help you contextualize, these are very dry as toast reports. There is nothing in there that you would, strongly agree with or disagree with. To be honest, it's all pretty much, do you have an executive director? Does he have a library degree? Is he a certified public librarian? How many branches? You know what I mean? It's very, very dry as toast stuff. I'm sure that Amanda can get you a draft. We're right down to the wire on this, but I'm sure that we would be able to get you a draft. The only thing that would be missing would be some final financials. But even those I think are pretty close. I mean, this document is very close to launch. And I'd be happy to share it with you as a draft with the understanding that it is a draft, but also just for your peace of mind. There is nothing in this document that says, we, the board of OCPL, believe that all cats are bad. You know what I mean? It's just not that kind of a document.
So
It's much more simple than that.
Sorry, I really need to be mindful of time because we're going to lose two people at 5. If we can get these after they're finalized, I think that's only in a couple of days. I think that's fair. Can we vote?
On the
It's been
question,
moved?
yes.
Thank you. Babette,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Lenore,
Yes.
Etta,
Yes.
and I'm also yes. Thank you. We do have some other reports that were in the pre-reads. I know that they came last night / this morning. I don't know if anybody has questions, and I really would like to keep this to questions. Anybody have questions on any of the other reports, the member director reports, which would be Alyssa's report, or the suburban library report, which is Mandy. There's also information from Focal.
Jill, can I just mention one quick thing that didn't get in the report is several library. Oh,
I'm just saying, I'm emphasizing one, sorry.
oh yes. I just wanted to congratulate several of our libraries went up for a budget vote yesterday within their school district, and all passed, flying colors. So yeah, that's a huge deal for them. So I wanted to say that.
Mandy, a good thing to point out. Thank you. So if you have questions when you read the reports or skim the reports, there's a transit report. There's many different reports for you to look at. If you don't know who to ask your question of, you can email me your question and I will pass them on. But always a lot of good information. Christian?
I know that we're mindful of time. I just wanted to call out our transportation team, Jesse and his team. I've been going down and going to the sorting room and there's nothing. I mean, the sorting room is cleared, which for the last year was impossible. So I just want to do a call out in public to the people who are at the top of the line here, that the transportation team has been really wailing on it and they've been doing a great job. I'm really impressed.
Thank you. So we have 15 minutes left, and what I'd like to do is have a discussion among the board members. And I know other people might be opinionated, but the board really needs to hear from each other. One of the things we need to be doing as a board is thinking about the future. And part of that thinking about the future is actually knowing our thoughts about libraries as a first step, our thoughts about the system, our thoughts about the community. And so I thought that we might spend the remainder of this time as board thinking about the mission of OCPL. And the mission of Onondaga County Libraries is Onondaga County Libraries prepares our community for a bright future by creating opportunities, empowering people, and inspiring ideas. And that's directly from our website. So when you think about that mission of creating opportunities, inspiring people, creating opportunities, empowering people, and inspiring ideas, What does that mean for you in terms of the future of the system? And Tim, you've been around for a long time, so you might have some good thoughts on this.
Well, yeah, and as you were reading that, I was thinking about some of the statistics that that Christian was reading off earlier about the usage of the digital cards. For example, the increase in use of the Morningstar database subscription. That's empowering people to help them make financial decisions. Even the fiction collections inspire people. The non-for-profit incubator that Christian's talking about. Bring people together, help them collaborate, produce good results. So I think the future of the library is going to be all these things. It's going to be helping people who never walk through the doors, as well as the people who go there for meetings and not to necessarily borrow a material. I think it's going to be a lot wider, as we've seen over the years. The whole time I've been involved in the library world, the mission has expanded. I had a friend who said it jokingly, still wanted to throttle him. It said, archaic institutions now that we have Amazon or in the internet. And it's not true. And I think our mission is just going to expand, particularly given the lack of resources so many in our community have.
Tim, thank you. What do the other board members think? When you think about that mission, what comes to mind?
This is Babette. So that's some of what I wanted to do, thinking about the strategic planning, is to think about as we come out, as we were coming out of COVID months ago, is what's next, what's new, what are other communities doing? You always want to think about what's happening in the ecosystem around you, what are some best practices that other systems are doing, and what can we adapt based on our own capability and capacities. And I do a lot of collaboration work with other groups that I work with. And, Christian, I sent you an email a couple of weeks ago, and I love the idea about the nonprofit incubator. And what I would love to see the library do is be more actually of a convener, because there are a lot of really good coalitions and groups that are already doing good work. But the problem is that we think that we have to do it by ourselves. Like, we don't think strategically about how that works. And I remember years ago, for many of you came on the board, because we knew we had so many homeless folks coming into, downtown, into Centro. Like, how could we get more of the homeless agencies coming in, bringing their workers in, even having the coalition meetings? But then, we started doing the building, the remodeling, and there wasn't really room for that to happen. But there's already good work that we're doing. And so we need to think more strategically about how we plug in, support that work. Who are our partners? Where should we be part of a coalition? What's a strategic alliance? Because we can't be everything to everybody, but thinking about the capacity of the board and the staff, what makes the most sense for us to be involved? So all that to say, I'm going to mute myself again now.
So Babette, you remind me of all the coalitions, and I use that word loosely, that exist in Syracuse that aren't visible. Where do people go for X? And there's some group working on that, and they're known to their community, but they might not be known to the library or known to the people on the other side of the county. And so, pulling those people together is something we could do.
Well, because we have branches in every single community, so we are so well situated to be involved, at least to spread some of this word. And I mean, I've lived in Syracuse most of my life. I grew up here, except for when I lived on the West Coast. And I can tell you, growing up, like, if you lived on the South Side, you didn't go to the East Side. You didn't know what was happening on the East Side or on the West Side or any of that. But literally, Syracuse is like I always say, like 5 square minutes, to get from in to in on a good day. So we're missing opportunities.
Maria?
Yeah, I've been working the vaccine site and the testing site, and one thing I don't know if anybody knows that people are having trouble signing up for vaccines. They just don't have the skill sets or the equipment. And I just know from my experience with the libraries, they're just a friendly place to be. I wish there could go to, the library could be someplace they could go and someone could help them with maneuvering the websites and just understand what it takes to register for these services. Because I just always think of the library as a trusting source that is just always available to everybody. And I just think it's not being utilized as much as it could be.
Thanks. So one of the things stands out to me is what's the, empowering people phrase, and there's the word empowering gets thrown around a lot. But there's so many different ways of doing that, of inspiring, empowering, of connecting people. But there's always people in the community who aren't connected or who feel, for whatever reason, left out. And so, that part really stands out to me. And I also think of some of the just the changes in language, the changes in attitude that have occurred over the last several years, and ensuring that our library community is in step with those things. So I think about, gender neutral language. I think about, people first language and all those things like that, that help people trust the institution and then allow us to work with them to empower them.
Jill.
Sam, yeah.
Yeah, just quickly. So I think one thing is, as I understand our role on the board, it's really to kind of select and help to manage our executive director, and then to also think about the budget. And so, I'm very much interested in Christian's perspective on this and where he sees things going, because, much more connected. And then I think the other place that we as board members certainly play a role is just connection to a number of different entities within the community that we can help to either say like, yes, good with budget, we should advocate for budget or approve a budget. And then also say, hey, you may need this connection to these groups. And so helping to support and advocate, and also say like, let's get these kind of plans in place, and giving Christian the room to do that, I think is important here.
So one of the things is that we work with the director to set the direction. But we never talk about direction as a board. We never spend time to think about what we want or where our heads are, or even what we think about libraries. I mean, you could be sitting here actually hating libraries, but being for some reason on this board. And so I think, spending time hearing each other, thinking about, what's our vision for the future? Because then we can, if we have some idea of what we're thinking, then we can better work together as a board. We can also better work together with our director.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I think that that's a great idea to be able to do that. I think as we've had some of the discussions around what a strategic plan looks like, or even do we do a strategic plan, I think what I've heard the preference is to, is to kind of work in tandem as much as we can, and sort of offer guidance. I mean, if the idea also is to say, let's drive that idea forward more than, certainly have a bunch of ideas, or we can work for a bunch of ideas. But I think clarifying, that sort of chicken and egg question to me is important. The one thing that I will say just quickly in terms of where I think libraries can be really important, we've seen over the last year that information is critically important and not hugely reliable. And libraries play a really important role in being able to offer information to people. And so I think prioritizing that as an opportunity for our library system is really important.
So I'm not holding this discussion for us to come out with a to-do, right? I'm holding this discussion so we can hear each other. And so we can begin to think. And I think if we, spend time in every meeting discussing whatever it might be something that's on the agenda. It might be something that a member library is doing. It might be something that Central's doing. But we need time to hear each other and to start to think about the future as a board. Babette, you work with boards, so you probably have things to say about this.
Well, that's one of the things. So I've also been pushing on doing the assessment, the self-assessment that comes with the nonprofit life cycle, because it looks at those 4 table legs: your governance, your management, your administrative systems, and like your business model, like what services and products do you provide to the community. And it just really gives you a really good picture of like where you are and thinking about where those, and I hate saying gaps, but I always like to say challenges and opportunities to move in different directions. Because the other thing is too, we're asking these questions of ourselves, like what do we see, where do we want to go? But once again, it all comes down to capacity.
Yes.
There might be lots of places that we want to go. Do we have the capacity to get there? And that's resources, staff, money, all of those things. So I'm going to put my hand up once again, because I'm still on, you can't see my video picture, but that I would love to do this, some board self-assessment. Heidi already uses the Life Cycles selfie, which is a great snapshot. And it just gives you some really good information about who you are, what you're thinking about, where you're going, what you have the capacity to do.
In talking with Heidi, Babette, and I think I've said this in the email, her thought was to wait until after the MOU is done. And I don't have it in my head. I don't have the right wording in my head why, but I know it's an email that now, just waiting a couple months, the timing might be better to do that. We know some of the structure things would be more visible. So I'm not ignoring your idea. Totally not ignoring your idea. I want to be mindful of time. Any other board member thoughts on this about the, by the way, I've got wonderful notes, so thank you.
I think since we inspire idea, I feel like we had to help them to take action. They help to dream, but also take action. It could be a retiree, it could be a parent, it could be a child. Mm-hmm. So not just have dreams, but then how to take action and make those dreams happen. It could be just finishing a book, finish the art project through a book that they get an idea. It could be many different things, but just take an action and get it done. And I think that sometimes we're afraid to take action. And if we can help with that, that'd be great.
And those are good final thoughts for the meeting. So we're at 5:15. Any final thoughts from the board? Of course, Tim has a thought.
Nope. Just unmuting myself.
So I want to note, because she's on the screen, one of the things that was in the pre-reads is a list of upcoming lectures for next year for Focal. I really want to give a major thumbs up to their speakers for next year. And I hope that you'll look at the list and perhaps attend some of them. So nice job to Focal. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Tim, thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
Edith, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any board member oppose? Any board member want to abstain?
I do. Let's just stay on for another hour. Oh, okay.
But that only if you're cooking.
Well, you know, I used to cater. I had a catering company for 25 years.
So it is 5:17 by my computer clock. We will call the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.